Do you remember as a little girl that feeling of being called a good girl? That feeling of satisfaction and pride because you did as you were told and you followed the rules. You may have even gotten a little reward because of it. And over the years, somewhere in the middle of all of that rule following, you disappeared. Not dramatically, not all at once. You just quietly agreed to become less than what you knew yourself to be. You were never a good girl and you knew it. There was a validation and a safetyness in hearing and knowing that you were accepted as a good girl when all the while you were a wild woman waiting to be released, a dangerous woman in the making, and a Renaissance woman who always wanted to play by her own rules. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how you can build outside of the system when you start playing by your own rules and breaking out of that good girl cage at the level of your body, your relationships, your spirituality, and your work in the world. And I'm going to show you why none of these are separate, because the woman who cannot trust what her body knows will not be able to trust what she knows about her own power. That woman, the woman who's still waiting for the system to define how she loves, how she lives, how she moves, how she works, will not be able to build anything that belongs to her. And that's not just philosophy, that's architecture. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so glad that you joined us. I am Marjorie. I'm a teacher. I'm a writer. I'm a guide for women at that threshold moment in their lives. This channel is where personal evolution meets collective leadership. And if you're a woman who senses something in you is ready to shift and how you see yourself, how you lead, how you move in the world, you're in the right place. And if this content speaks to you, please like it, subscribe, and share it so that it can reach women who need it the most. Women's bodies have been colonized for years, right? And I'm intentionally using that word because we tend to use it in the large sense of like land and culture and people. But there is a colonization that happens that is intimate as well. It happens within the bedrooms, it happens within our relationships, it happens in our prayer closets, it happens in the workplace, right? It happens the first time a little girl is told that what she feels and what she said and what she's thinking is wrong, that what she wants is too much, that who she is at her core, her wild instinctual self, must be managed and managed by someone other than her. Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes, the author of Women Who Run with the Wolves, you hear me quote her time and time again. She wrote that the wild woman archetype is not something we become. It is something that was always there. It was just suppressed, starved out, but it was never destroyed. She is in you. She has been in you the whole time. Before the conditioning to be called a good girl, before you learned to follow all the rules. So today I want to ask you this question. What would it mean to build your entire life? That means your body, your relationships, your spiritual practice, your work. Do it the way you want to do it without permission, without approval or validation of the system. To build something, whether it is a business or a movement, your life, that does not need the validation or approval of the good girl stamp. Okay, so lost my mic halfway through, but that's all right. So let's continue. Let's get real granular here because this is where women get lost
And we talk about liberation in the abstract, and then we go home to the same contracted life. So I want to share with you exactly what building outside of the system looks like in practice. And you'll actually get an opportunity to see this in action on May 11th if you decide to join us. I'll let you know a little bit more about that towards the end of the video. But let's talk about this at the body level. There are women who have spent decades not knowing what pleasure feels like, not as indulgence, but as intelligence. Their erotic knowing, their capacity to want and to receive was stripped from them before they even had words. Society told them what their bodies are for. It told them when their bodies were acceptable, when their bodies were too much. It told them when it wasn't enough. It told them that desire was weakness and that hunger is a sin, that the body's signals are not to be trusted. When a woman reclaims her erotic intelligence, and I'm not talking about sex, I'm talking about the body's knowing, that wild instinctual knowing, she is doing a revolutionary act. She is saying that I am the authority on what I feel and what I want, and the system does not get to tell me what my body is for. That is building outside of the system at the most intimate level. Now, let's look at it at the relationship level, right? The system, society has given us very clear definitions of commitment, marriage, family, partnership, right? It has rules about what that looks like, who they include, and what they require of you. And many women have built their entire relational lives around these definitions. And it's not because they chose them, it's because these were the only blueprints that they were handed. But what would it look like to build a relationship to yourself, to the sacred, to commitment, and to love, to have a union with yourself first that does not require institutional permission? What does it mean to make a covenant with your own becoming? And I have a video about this titled When a Woman Belongs to Herself and what that union looks like. And I'll also link that in the show notes below for you. But this is what I call the Lilith energy, right? Because women are realizing we're not here to complete anyone in the sense that we've been told that completeness looks like, right? It's this romanticizing of I complete you. Being in relationship and being in partnership is about a synergy and a balancing of the masculine and the feminine on both ends that work together. That is the completion. If you are only if you only want to be a partner that mirrors back, a reflection back of what that other person wants to see, if you're doing that in relationship, you're probably doing that in other areas of your life. And this is going to render you invisible. In relationships, you are seen, you are witnessed, but it must start with you. You must see yourself, you must witness yourself, you must know yourself. That is building outside of the system at the relational level. Now, let's look at leadership because we know that we're in a leadership crisis right now. We see what the definition of leadership has given us over all of these years. We've been taught that leadership is a position, that it's a title, an institution, something you aspire towards and you climb towards, something you're granted, and something that requires the system to recognize and validate you. But I want to ask you, what if leadership is a frequency? What if it's not something you hold over other people, but it's something that you carry with you in the way you walk into a space, the way you hold space for other people, for other women, right? For a woman who might be in the middle of her own unraveling, and you don't try to fix her. You just let her be witnessed. This is the type of leadership that doesn't show up in organizational charts. A society will call it unrealistic and unmarketable, and institutions won't have a title for it. And yet, it's the most powerful form of leadership that exists. The woman who leads from presence and who refuses to perform someone else's definition of authority is building outside of the system at the leadership level. Now let's talk about your work in the world. And I'm not just talking about your 9 to 5. I'm talking about the thing that you know that you are here to do, the thing that the culture calls impractical or unimaginable, the thing that has no precedence, no template, no guarantee. The women who built before us, the women that I've been talking about, the Harriet Tubmans, the Ida B. Wells, the Madam C.J. Walkers, so many more that I haven't had a chance to mention, they did not wait for the system to make room for them. They built in the margins and they called it the center. They did not wait for permission because they had a knowing. This is what building outside the system means at the level of the work you do in the world. Now, here's what I want you to hear and feel actually in your body right now. Because these 4 areas that I just mentioned, they're not separate, right? You cannot architect new structures of financial, educational, communal if you're still colonized in your body, if you don't belong to yourself, if you're still asking for permission that you don't need. Because needing that validation of a good girl, that means that that's still living in your nervous system. And that's the exact moment, right? That a woman is feeling that weight of that loop of that need. You can see it in yourself, you can feel it, but you don't yet know how to name it precisely, right? But the pattern does have a name. And there's a tool that I built specifically to help you see that pattern, where it lives in you, what it's protecting, and what becomes possible when you stop organizing your life around it. And it's called the emergence map. This shows you how and why it's triggered and what archetype wants to emerge but can't. Now, when you get the results from this, you will also receive a comprehensive 90-day bespoke plan. It's customized specific to you that includes 3 action phases, failure protocols, and a tracking strategy. So I'm also going to link that in the comments and the show notes below for you so you can get started on that today. But let's continue because what I'm about to show you is why you cannot do this work that I just talked about alone. You cannot lead from presence if you're still performing someone else's definition of leadership. Because presence requires that you're actually connected to your body. And most of us are not operating from our original frequency because it's been so distorted by the rules we've been following, the conditionings, and all of the distraction and noise around us. You also cannot build relationships based on your own truth if you're still waiting for the system's definition of what love looks like. If you're still waiting to be chosen, because you will keep outsourcing your knowing to a structure that was never designed to hold you in the way that matters. This is what I mean when I say building outside of the system. It's not one thing, it's nest. The liberation of the body makes possible the liberation of the relationships, which makes possible the liberations of everything that you do in the world, your work, your leadership. You cannot do one without the others eventually following. That is the architecture. So if you're still here, then I want you to know what happens next. You need to be in the room with us on May 11th. This is not a masterclass. This is not a program or a webinar or course. This is a room. This is the final saloon in a series that I've been building towards for this moment. In February, we started with called and courageous, right? We remembered our ancestors and the women that came before us and the blueprint that they left us. Then we came together after that for dangerous imagination to ask what becomes possible when women stop building inside the structure that was designed to limit them. And now we're coming together to start architecting something that the system will never sanction. Because what I've learned is that this work does not happen in a straight line. There will be women in that room who have already done the deep work. They've reclaimed their bodies, their desires, their spirituality, their relationships, and they will come to deepen it further and to architect at a larger scale. There will also be women in the room who understand this intellectually and spiritually, but they've not yet embodied it or built from it. So they will come to do the work with women who can model it, not as teachers or performing authority in any way, but as guides, right, who've already walked part of that path. And then there will be women in that room who are just waking up to the fact that they've been living inside someone else's storyline. They have come to remember, and they remember alongside women who already know what remembering feels like. This is the work of evolution, ladies. So the question now is not whether you are ready to build what's next. I know you are. The question is whether you are willing to do that work of building and architecting in the company of women who are doing it alongside you. Because the work is not solo work. It's never been solo work. But this is where we begin, and this is where we start. So, as always, I am Marjorie, and this is the work of remembering who you are before the world told you who to be. I'll see you next time.